Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Yoga Teachers Talk, a series of conversations that we're having with different yoga teachers, different kinds of yoga teachers, in an attempt to shed light on different issues that we face as yoga teachers and as practitioners of yoga in a field which is as yet a very nascent and a very new field. And with me today, I have Sugandha and I have Soumya. And our topic for today is yoga as a full-time career. So the three of us, are full-time yoga teachers, and we've been teaching for a while, and we come from a very wide kind of experience of teaching and very varied experiences in terms of teaching. So we wanted to discuss what it is like to be a full-time yoga teacher, um, uh, reasons for why you should not think about becoming yoga teachers. In a sense, why is it a bad idea? What you should expect if you do decide to become yoga teachers, and also the pros and the cons, or the cons and the pros. We've all heard about why it's such a great idea. The media is full of what a great field yoga teaching is, and I think a lot of young yoga teachers go into it because it seems like such an attractive profession. But there are many cons to it as well. So we wanted to discuss those also, and hopefully supplement everything we say with personal anecdotes and personal experiences. So let's begin. I know Soumya and Sugandha, when I said let's talk about why it's a bad idea, you guys were like, no, let's talk. Let's say why. What are the reasons not to become a yoga teacher? And you wanted to look at it from that approach. And I was just my approach is very like a brute force kind of approach. Like, why is it a bad idea? So let's talk a little bit about that. So Sugandha, why don't you tell me what are your reasons? Why would you tell someone not to become a yoga teacher?
Thank you, Pragya. Little bit of my background. I was in IT job. I served in IT for 10 years, but I was not very happy with the kind of work I was doing. I was not getting connected to the work, and that's where I started exploring other fields. When I explored yoga, I had a connection with the subject basically because I love the subject myself about human anatomy, human psychology, behavior, study patterns. So I love the subject, and for the love of that subject, I thought that I want to be a yoga teacher. Okay, so that's where I decided to be a yoga teacher. But having said that, at that point of time when my career was in a full bloom and I was having a good high paying job, just leaving everything and then deciding one day that okay, let's me explore a new field was not at all easy a path to take. At that time I was not really thinking about how will I sustain or survive in this field, or will it be difficult for me? I was just in so much of love for what I wanted to do in this field that I just went ahead. But if somebody would have told me at that point of time that, okay, it's going to be very, very difficult to establish yourself, it's not going to be so easy, and you will have to really struggle as a new teacher, because new teacher, you are like a fresher in the any field, right? And this field do not have as many jobs or as many options as you have in IT, because IT has become very easy to get a job. So if I knew all that, I might have had a backup plan, saying that okay, I will not leave my job immediately. I would have done the teaching for a few years, and when I was established for some time, I would have left my job, because it gave me a lot of uncertainty in terms of finances. There was no money to some money coming in, and it's not sustainable for a few years. So if you are somebody who is new and who is on their own and who wants to also earn as you learn, you need to really be very, very clear that it's not going to be such an easy and simple path. So that's why it's not a good idea in my experience.
So then that's really interesting. Oh yeah, can I?
Yes,
yeah, please go ahead.
And what you said about not having jobs in this field, I think that is 100% spot on, because whether you look at, I started out teaching about 10, 12 years ago, and I would say, regardless of where, and I've taught in the US, I've taught in Europe, in Costa Rica, I've taught here in India primarily for the last 10 years. And I would say that regardless of when, the era, this is always going to be, or this has longed for a long time been this issue that there's not jobs in this field. It's not like you can just walk into, you know, an interview and say, there's an interview slot, and it's from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on a particular day, and you just go into a company and say, hey, I'd like to be a yoga teacher. There's not that many opportunities out there, so you really have to carve a niche for yourself. Um, and you have to find out where it is in the space of yoga. Now, there's a huge scope for teaching yoga, but there's not a lot of jobs. And so that kind of makes it a very unique field where, I honestly, I was interviewed for I Love Mondays, which is about different careers that people can take, it's done for youth. And I was done this interview about 10 years ago. And even then I said, if there are 7.5 billion people on the planet, then every person can use a personalized yoga teacher. But can everyone afford it? Not necessarily. And I think, are there that many jobs available? No, because this is a job you have to create for yourself. And I think that's where it differentiates from a lot of other fields. And I'd have to say, there's more than just teaching the yoga. There's the entire spectrum of running a business. You have to be a full, well-rounded person and have the ability to multitask, to do the communications, do the marketing, do the counseling, do all of the different aspects of what it takes to be a yoga teacher and be on your own in this field. Run your own enterprise.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's so much in what you've just said, Soumya. So the ironic thing is that I get a lot of queries from people who want to be yoga teachers, and a lot of them say, I want a job as a yoga teacher. So they look at a lot of startups. I mean, now you can say that there are a few more opportunities for yoga teachers because there are these startups and they're trying to create like a company where there are yoga teachers available for. So the irony is that a lot of people they ask me about these jobs. What are the job options for me after I do my teacher's training? Can I teach at a studio? Can I teach in a university, like a yoga university? And the interesting thing is that they're looking at going from one corporate domain to another one. Like they hope that yoga will be very similar. They hope that they will just be able to enter a job and a job as a yoga teacher and have the same benefits, have the same sort of vacation rules, and they're just looking at that. And I find that so ironic because when I was looking to become a yoga teacher, I was not looking for a structure to go into. I was not just looking at changing my job. I was looking at creating a career or carving out, like what you said, Soumya, carving a niche for myself. And I wanted that it be something different. I was not looking at the kind of stability I had. These were not the things that drove me towards this profession. So I think a lot of people, like if you're looking for that sense of stability for an HR department, for your vacations and your CLs and your PLs and all of that, and your retirement benefits, this you might want to rethink it because this doesn't really give you that. And there's a whole new talk that we could do on being an independent yoga teacher versus being employed by a company which is allegedly a yoga company or a startup. But I would say that if you are truly and honestly looking to go to another company, or you want a paycheck at the end of every month and you're looking for the same sort of structure that you have in your corporate job, then maybe this is not the job for you, because the salaries also initially will not be the same. You might end up finding the same sort of structure, lucky if you're lucky, but your salary will not be the same. benefits will not be the same, and the amount of energy that you will need, to sort of get your career started, will be will be a lot more than what you're expending now, getting more benefits, getting more of a salary, etc., etc. So I think that's like one of the reasons, not not to become a yoga teacher. If you're looking at these things, retirement benefits and all of that, it is not. And I remember when I started, I was very, like all of us, we're very naive. You think it's just about giving great classes, and the more the students I have, the better it's going to be, and I'm going to be like a famous Instagram yoga teacher. And then eventually you realize that you have to do your own marketing, you have to be your own HR, you have to be your own salesperson, your social media, everything. You're just doing everything on your own, and then you realize that it requires you to put on all these hats. No one else is going to do that for you. There are no departments. You have to be your own CA as well, and a lot of yoga teachers don't like numbers. They don't like, they don't want to do that. Not that there's many numbers initially. I mean, you're hardly earning anything. So my main, I think, reasons that I would ask wannabe yoga teachers to evaluate is: are you looking for the same sort of structure that you have right now? If yes, then maybe you should just stick to whatever structure you have right now. In all probability, it is probably giving you a lot more than, than a yoga based similar structure. Also, you have to be ready, that you will be doing a lot more. Like, teaching a class is like a little amount of the kind of things that you're doing, the number of things that you're doing, to become a successful yoga teacher, to be a full-time yoga teacher who pays her bills through yoga. So yeah, so that's quite interesting.
Pragya,
Yeah.
oh, you bring up a really interesting point when you're comparing to, or when you're discussing the yoga startups or like health startups that are, trying to offer a position of a yoga teacher or a yoga consultant. And I'm going to bring it back to actually what is a startup and what's required in a startup environment. You're expected to be all hands on deck and
Right.
put in 1,000%. You're expected to fill all the hats at all times. So even if you're hired as the yoga consultant,
Mhm.
you might be doing the marketing, you might be doing the communications, you might be doing, yes, you're going to be teaching some classes also, or being the yoga consultant, working with private clients on their chronic conditions. That's great, but you also have to fill in these other roles, because that's what the nature of a startup is. And I'm going to say the same thing, like that's what the nature of an NGO is. Having run an NGO in the yoga space for many years, a lot of my teachers, when we brought them on board, they filled in a lot of hats. They were the manager for a team. They did reporting. They did they did site visits. You know, they did team building events. They did all sorts of things
Right.
for their teams. And the same way, like if somebody's hired for a particular position, but that doesn't mean that they're not doing something else
Mm.
also.
Right.
And that's really the nature of
Yeah.
this field.
Yeah. I think
Whether
that's
you're
so.
yeah, whether you're in a group or an independent.
Right.
Yeah, so I just want to add to my experience actually. When you both are talking about this, I am remembering that how in the corporate I was just doing one job which I was given to do, and I was like responsible for it. But as soon as I entered the yoga field, I'm like doing everything. It's like, and it's nothing less than running a startup. If like you're running your own studio,
Yeah.
or you're running your online classes, you are running a startup because you are doing every field which Pragya mentioned is what is you
Mm.
need to do. You can't escape all those aspects of it. So with that, like, what do you expect out as a yoga teacher? You're expected to be an enterprising person who has a grip on
Yeah.
all the different fields other than your teaching. So if you're thinking that you are a yoga teacher and you just teach in a class and come back, so that's not going to really help you in a long run as a yoga teacher. So I remember so many courses I did after that. I may have not learned in my 10 years of my corporate career than how much I learned in running this small enterprise which I have, from HR to marketing to finances, everything I learned on my own. And I think I can go and work in a startup now better than what I was
I mean,
before. I'm like, I can be a good asset to a corporate now than before. So yeah, it's like one journey. It's
Mm.
one full
Yeah.
circle. It cannot be just teaching
Yeah.
and just
So the
getting away
interesting
with
thing
it.
is, see, we started this conversation discussing why it's a bad idea, why you should not become a yoga teacher, and we have ended up, talking about what to expect. So it seems like the reasons for not thinking about this profession are the reasons for what you can expect in the profession, and this is something that nobody escapes. Like all yoga teachers have to go through this, and there's so many similarities in all our journeys. So, is there anything else that you would like to add in terms of what to expect? Like we've discussed so much about about the processes, finances, all of that. Is there anything else you guys can think of? I think our reasons and what to expect are pretty much the same.
yeah, and no, but what I would like to say is, what Sugandha was saying is that now she's better prepared to work in a startup, and I think startups, and
Yes.
we need to be recognized for that. It needs to be
Yes,
recognized that we are
such a
not just
hard work.
a lot of people out there, and if you try to go out and look for a job in a startup, they'll say, wait a minute, all you know how to do is teach yoga.
Yeah.
But actually, when actually you have developed so many other skills, as you rightly
Yes.
said, you're an
Yeah.
HR manager,
Right.
you're a marketing manager, you're a marketing whiz at this point.
Yeah.
And you know how to do communications, you know how to network, you know so
Hmm.
many different things.
Yes.
So you've built all these other skills, but people don't recognize that.
Don't recognize
And I
that.
think that
Yeah,
it's
that's the
so
irony
important
of
to
it.
remember, like,
They just think that you are just a yoga teacher who is teaching and spreading knowledge of
Yeah. And
yoga, but
right.
it's
And they think
much
you
much
have
more
these
than that.
ready-made students, and you just announce one day that you're a yoga teacher and everything is just in place. But and interestingly, Sugandha, you were saying that now if you go back to a corporate, you're so much more prepared. So just
Definitely.
recently, I was looking at the way the entry requirements for my classes, because I'm getting a lot of, every year at the end of the year, all yoga teachers get an increase in the number of students who want to come, like an increase in intake. So I was ironically, I was thinking about my time in Infosys. Now in Infosys, we used to kind of joke about how Infosys is so process driven that even if you wanted to get a pen, let's say from their stationery store, like you would have to fill a bunch of forms, and you would have an appointment, and then you would go there and we would get one pen. And we used to make so much fun of it because at one point in time, Infosys wasn't like that. And while I was working there, then all of a sudden there are all these processes. So you're actually logging into a website and putting in a request for a pen and stuff like that. And I remember, when I was looking at my sort of process of intake, I was like, okay, I am establishing a process for myself, and I realize how important it is to sort of have like an intake form, or have like a questionnaire that students fill out, have their email IDs, or have a record of their issues and their problems and what they're expecting, and the importance of having feedback forms. And as a new yoga teacher, you don't think about all this paperwork. You don't think about all these processes. So, in a way, we are our own startups. Like you, as a yoga teacher, you are a startup. So if you look at the kind of work that a startup is doing, another organization, a corporate organization like Infosys, like a behemoth like Infosys is doing at your level, you are also gonna eventually end up establishing those processes, and the sooner you do that, the better, because it just works out better for you. I mean, you are more organized, you present a better picture to the world, a more professional picture to the world. So it's just ironic that there are so many similarities between the work we do as independent yoga teachers and the kind of work that is
yeah,
is being done by startups and or other organizations. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
so Pratibha, very good point. See, what makes you different from other yoga teacher? These are the only small things which makes you different from the other yoga teacher. So, if you are process driven, if you are organized, if your classes are running on time, if you have a proper system in place for feedback, those are the things which goes in the long run to make you establish as a good yoga teacher and also as an enterprise. Because if you do not have that, it's difficult to scale up. You may have few students all the time, but you may never be able to scale up or establish yourself as a good yoga teacher in the business, because we are talking yoga as a business. So
Yeah, yeah.
having a good social media, a website, a YouTube channel, and processes in place, taking feedback, so all this is part of your
Mm,
job as a yoga teacher, and you can't really escape from that.
yeah.
And I think while we're talking about, scaling up the number of students or an increase in students, actually, that and having an intake form and ensuring that people are genuine about wanting to learn yoga, if that's the space that you want to get into, that is quite difficult, because a lot of people think, okay, yoga is just something I do on the side. It's just a one-off activity. I did it this week, I did it
Yeah.
next week. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, but then I don't need to do it after that.
Mm.
Or
I
I come for a yoga workshop, and that's enough.
Yeah.
And they're
So
done.
I recently had a query from someone who wanted to join the yoga class with her 10-year-old kid. And I told her, this is not an extracurricular activity. That's not what I'm teaching. I am teaching serious yoga for adults and for kids. It's like putting an adult and a kid in the similar math class, in the same math class. It doesn't work that way. The way we teach kids, the way we teach adults is very different, so I think, I mean, we can do a whole other talk on people's perception of yoga class, because I'm sure you guys also get that kind of query. Can I have my 5-year-old in the class with me? And so it is, I think, how you project yourself, the kind of responses that you give to queries, all of that really um, goes to building you, like establishing your you in the market, and you have to do it. All kinds of students will come to you, but how you field the questions, how what is your method of taking students in,
So,
uh,
yeah.
all of that, are things that, like Sugandha said, you cannot escape from. I mean, it's in your best interest to just sort of catch the
Yeah.
Yeah,
bullseye.
the world has changed over the years. It has become technology oriented, and we can't really deny that. So we have to take advantage of technology, and we use it, and then that will help us grow. So any yoga teacher, you need to learn a little bit of technology. You need to be knowing a bit about it, and with your teaching, so that helps you in your growth. Basically, nothing
Mm,
else. If you're not technology savvy, that's also fine. If you're not social media savvy, that's also fine. But that's the path you have chosen. Then
Yes.
you should be happy and with whatever you're getting as a student, and then that should be.
yeah.
Yeah, and in that way, you really have to decide, okay, do you want to work with children? Do you want to work with adults? Do you want to work with
Mm,
women only? Do you want to work with seniors? And which which sector you really want to impact?
right.
And you then you have to educate yourself in that space. You
Mm,
can't, and there's not a lot of courses out there that
mm,
train you for, okay, let's do yoga for senior citizens, and let's give you a certificate that you are a yoga teacher for senior citizens. But
mm,
you really have to, there's a few, I'm not going to say no, and definitely, my NGO has such a course, not for seniors but for other communities.
right.
But I would say, by and large, it's a lot of self study and self knowledge, and
Mm,
building
yeah.
that foundation.
That's another thing you can expect, a lot of self-study.
Yes, yes.
So, what are the cons and the pros? Again, I'm going to say cons and pros, not pros and cons, because everybody knows the pros of teaching yoga. But we can reiterate those. But what are the cons and the pros? Like Sugandha, why don't you begin, like, in this profession?
Yeah, I'll talk from my experience. I always have the self doubt coming in. Not always, like, there are times when you get self doubt, because there are times when you'll not have enough students. There are times when you'll not
Mhm.
have enough people to teach, or you may not have enough intake. It's
Mhm.
always the yoga. Last years, whatever I've observed, it's up and down. Okay, you'll not have always same set of students all the time,
Yeah.
and that gives you a little bit of unstability, because
Yeah.
one thing is that you are thinking, are you good enough?
Yeah.
You're questioning yourself, are you like really good enough to
Yeah.
teach? Like, is this something which, because you are thinking why people are leaving, but they have their own reasons to leave and you can't really help it. And then you will have to struggle with finances as well, because you not have enough people to teach. So that gives you self-doubt time to time, and you need to deal with it. Or
Mm.
you need to know how to, when you have enough time, free time, how to do, put it on the self study and utilize it for other things, then really going into that set of mode that I don't have enough people to teach, what do I do now?
Mm.
So there are a lot of self doubts, and there are a lot of questions which will keep coming to your mind. And for me, it comes more often because I keep going back to my corporate career and always comparing it with it, that I
Oh.
was established and now it is not established, and I'm struggling to establish my firm. And how many years will it take to
Yeah.
come to that level?
Yeah.
Will I be ever be able to establish it to that level? So all those doubts are always there. It's because your
Mm.
mind is what it is. And yeah, your practice, your teaching makes you stay grounded all the time. But those are the cons. You need to
Mm.
accept it and then
I,
be with it.
I guess even another con that I see is what is the growth for your, what is the growth potential also for your business? I mean, maybe it's something that you want to expand into a franchised opportunity, or you want to just spread into different geographies. Maybe that makes sense, and so there is a lot of potential for growth. But at some point, you're doing the same. You have to realize that you are going to be doing the same thing over and over and over again. You may be doing all these different aspects, but you have to keep doing it. And as Sugandha was saying, sometimes people drop out. Well, that happens a lot more often than people are led to believe. And people don't come back to the classes. They come and then they come back after 3 weeks. Oh, I was busy for something else. Went out of town. I went to my native place.
I
So
was
they
sick.
have all sorts of issues.
Yeah.
And I would say that especially in India, like when we're looking at the Indian context, one of the issues that you're going to find is people are not committed oftentimes, and or
Absolutely.
they have other commitments. They have other
Commitment.
things
Yeah.
they have to get to.
Right.
And studying yoga, and maybe it's okay if you have a drop-in yoga class, but if you really want to help somebody and help students understand what yoga actually is and what it can actually do for them, uh,
Mm.
that that takes a long time, and you need to have students who have that level of patience.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
you don't find a lot of this. It takes time to build that type of student base.
Right. So I think like one thing Sugandha was saying about, am I good enough? Should I go back somewhere and come? All of that. I mean, that's also like imposter syndrome. You always have self doubts. And I think when I started out, I did not factor that in. The incredible self-doubt that you have on a daily basis, and which keeps coming back, every time you think, okay, now it's good, like class is full and students are giving good feedback, and then just the next day you might just have this crippling self-doubt, like what am I doing with life and where am I going? And like you don't even have a retirement fund to plan for, or like a ppf or whatever, the kind of structure that was there before. And I think that is like the biggest con, because that kind of stability, the mental stability, that or the emotional stability that you have in a usual job, that you don't have here. Over there you are given a designation and therefore no one questions it, people understand it, where if you say you're a software engineer, you're a team leader, manager, people understand it, everyone understands it. Here you're pretty much on your own. When you say yoga teacher, people just think of that yoga class. They think you do a little bit of breathing in the park and then you come back, and it's on a like on an hourly basis. Sometimes you're trying to figure out what you're doing and there's no affirmation from anywhere else. You're your own sort of
Yes.
support group. So I
Yes.
think I was not prepared for that is one of the biggest cons, because there's self-doubt all the time. And despite the self-doubt, you still have to show up for class. You cannot call in sick unless you're actually sick. And then so that is one thing. And another thing that I don't know if you guys also go through this, but there's something uh, that's tiring, mentally exhausting, about constantly thinking about your work. Like, you're constantly stimulated, you're constantly thinking about yoga, how to get more classes, more students, what is a good way of advertising. Whenever you look on Instagram, you see how people are doing things, and then you think, can I implement this? And a lot of it is in a good way. It's not necessarily that you're comparing yourself, but everywhere you go, all the things you see, everything, you're constantly inadvertently relating it to the work that you do. And that can be so exhausting because you're not on leave. Like, there's that idea of like, let me just go on leave, just is not there, you have to and I think that learning how to switch off for me happened very much into, after 7 8 years
Yeah.
of constant teaching, because that's when you feel that sense of balance, which is kind of fleeting, but yet you start to glimpse that sense of balance. But the first 3 years, you're just so exhausted everywhere you go. That imposter syndrome, you're trying to fight against it. Then you're trying to see what everyone else is doing. You're trying to market yourself. You're trying to see, is there something and it's just so much noise in your head, contrary to what the popular belief that we're all very peaceful and just meditating all the time.
And breathing in the park.
Breathing in the park, yeah, fresh
We did.
oxygen, whatever.
I can't say no. I can't say I disagree with breathing in the park though, because we did have a program at Prafulurja called Pranayama in the park. It was at Kaban Park
Yeah,
many years ago, maybe about
yes,
5 years ago.
yes, it was pranayama. It was not just go and just breathe a little bit, chit chat, and come back, which is what people are thinking that we're doing.
Yes, it was actually very structured. We had a program in place, and that one was funded. And when it comes to financing and funding, whereas in other startups, you know that at some point you're going to pitch to an investor.
Right.
There's going to be venture capitalists, there's going to be angel investors, there's going to be somebody out there who's interested in your idea. How many times have you found an investor who says, you know what, I want to invest in yoga? I know we are currently under a Modi government, and he's definitely pro yoga,
Mm,
but how much funding is there? And how much of it trickles down to the grassroots and the small enterprises like ours?
mm,
And I know this looking at grants for my NGO for the last many years, and even approaching corporate groups. They're all like, okay, well, we can fund dancing, we can fund art, we can fund reading, we can fund computers, but we can fund things for women, but we can't
yeah.
this whole yoga thing. And
Right.
so it's an enterprise that doesn't have, like, unlike other startups that we've been talking about. Sugandha, you say
Mm,
that you're ready to work in a startup, but sometimes that startup is going to get funded.
Yes,
yeah.
What's
yeah.
what's
I'm
the
seeing
potential
that,
for
yeah.
yoga getting
I
funded?
keep a track of a lot of corporates and a lot of startups. How do they work and what's happening in the field? Not only yoga, others. And you're so right, Soumya. Even in the field of yoga, it's so uncertain. The whole business is uncertain. Though it's growing, it's in the path of growth, but it is again, it's very uncertain at the same time
Mm,
because people are not committed to it.
mm,
It's like a side hobby. It's not even a hobby. It's like when they're sick, they will come and want to
yeah.
join the class,
Yeah.
and then they start feeling a little better, and then they are like gone. Really.
So
Okay,
that's
fine.
another con.
Everybody wants it.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Yeah.
that's another con
So
that
yeah, but I have I have a full like feeling that in next 10 years the whole dimension for yoga will change because there's a lot of need right now which people will recognize in the coming year, which is a con because the whole society is changing in terms of their health and it's
Mm,
it's I should not say it like though the people's health is getting degraded in terms of what they're eating and how they're living,
right,
they
right.
will need yoga in coming years for sure. Everybody will need it, and that's where demands will increase. So yeah, the awareness is what I think as a yoga teacher it's our responsibility also to bring that awareness and purpose. Why
Hmm.
it's
Somebody
so
breathing
much
there
to do.
behind you, Sugandha? So there's
Yeah,
somebody
the curtain.
close.
Okay. Cool. So I think, yeah, I mean, we can just keep discussing this idea forever. And this is such an interesting idea, the startup. We could do a whole different talk on yoga startups and the market of yoga, because everything now, you have yoga pillows, yoga mattresses, and sleep yoga, and all of that. I mean, we could just go on and on, and it's something so actually it's exciting me, and we can actually discuss that. But I think we've touched upon some very relevant points about that yoga teachers can think about, those who are considering yoga to be a full-time career. That, number one, if you're looking for the kind of structure you have right now, you're not, you won't get that. It's better to stay within the structure that you have right now. Number two, you'll end up doing everything on your own, and you should be ready for that. And three, like imposter syndrome. I think, Sugandha, that was like a great point that you made. And Soumya, I think you've touched upon the market of yoga, like the inconsistency, like the students who are inconsistent, and commitment. There's not much of a commitment, and you are battling with that on a daily basis. Besides this, do you guys want to sort of talk any other point that I'm missing? I mean, I think these are all topics that everybody should think about if you're thinking about getting into yoga full time. Is there anything else that I missed?
I just want to make one point, which is very clear in my head and my heart. When I started teaching, you do become a teacher for the love of the subject, and not for that being that cool yoga teacher, which which is a new thing. Okay, if you have a heart and soul for the subject, and you are somebody who has that kind of empathy, and want to willing to make it as a full-time career for your lifetime. Okay, so that lifetime commitment, if you can give, then think about it. But otherwise, if all the other things are attracting you around yoga teacher, as all those cool stuff around yoga, then do think about it again, one, and take some time to decide.
Right,
Yeah,
right. Good point.
we really want more authentic yoga teachers, people who can, like you said, empathize and be true to themselves in the
Mm.
space.
Yeah, because that's what which will make you keep going. Otherwise, you will get after some time you may not want to do it,
Yeah,
for sure.
burnout sets in pretty quickly. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. So I think this was a fabulous conversation. I mean, I think a lot of takeaways for a lot of people. Um, so I think we can actually close now. So everyone who's watching on YouTube, on the different platforms, thank you for logging in and for staying till the end of the conversation. And if you have any questions for us, please leave it in the comments or reach out to us. And we could do another talk on that. And like I said in the beginning, this is a nascent field. It's a very new field, and we are trying to get a conversation started, and a valuable conversation started, because nobody else is really talking about these things. So please do reach out to us with any of your comments, your thoughts, your advice, anything, feedback, any kind of feedback, and we would be happy to incorporate it. And yeah, I'll list our email IDs below, along with our social media handles, so that it's easier for people to get in touch with us. So Sugandha and Soumya, thank you so much. This
Thank
has
you,
been,
Pragya. Thank
I
you
think
for
we're getting
having
better
us.
at these talks now.
Yeah, I think we all are.
Thank
Yeah.
you for having us, Pragya, and thanks for arranging everything. Yeah, I feel like this was maybe our best one.
Great, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you
I
so much.
feel that if this kind of talk show was there when I started my career, it was very beneficial. So now we doing it, it makes so much sense, and I hope it gets benefit to as many people as possible in the field of yoga.
Great, great. Okay, guys. Thank you. And I will see you guys for the next one then. Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right.
It's good.
Bye bye.
Bye, guys.
Namaste.
Thanks so much. Enjoy your weekend.
You too.